Hello guys, this is your fanfic dojo and we are back with our new fanfic, which is What If Naruto Married Multiple Konoichi Part 2. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and please subscribe to the channel. It motivates me to upload more fanfic like these for you all. Now let's start the fanfiction. Looks like you're the only one left, Sasuke said, leering ominously at Dosu. I hope you make things more interesting than your friend did, or perhaps I'll have my way with the girl, Sasuke said, turning his evil crimson eyes on the girl that was waking up behind Dosu. Dosu did nothing but move away as he picked up Zaku. If he only had to pick one, it would be Zaku. Besides, Kin was basically useless anyway and only on their team because they needed a girl. She could be taken and Lord Orochimaru would give them another. Actually, I think I've seen quite enough of this pathetic display of power for one day. I have all that I need. Besides, I find it particularly disgrace to bring a defeated female into your fight. It's also disgrace to simply abandon the girl as well, and yet I still can't answer the question as to which act is more despicable. A calm, silk, yet dangerous voice washed over the scene as everyone's eyes were drawn to the regal-looking swordsman and his smaller ninja accomplice, both who were walking calmly onto the clearing, though the smaller man walked several steps behind the man with the swords. The man walked with such grace and power. He was like a wolf about to strike down its prey. They all knew then that he was the wolf, and they were the prey. With each echoing step he took, they could feel their demises growing closer and closer just from the cold, merciless look in his eyes. He walked like a predator and they were his lambs to slaughter. They all watched the walk of Lord Naruto Sesshomaru Uzumaki, and they grew paler with each step. His swords made no sound as they simply bobbed with him in perfect harmony. His shoulder held a long fur of some kind that seemed to dance and flutter gently in the wind of his motion. His calm and indifferent expression had but a flicker of disgust and anger as he reined in his emotions like a master. His white clothes looked to have never seen dirt nor blood with their perfect color, and his armor shined in the daylight with a new and expensive look. His nails looked to be sharp, and to have been manicured by Kami just as the rest of him looked to be the incarnation of perfection. His long silk blonde hair swaying with his every echoing step that foretold their pained deaths. While Neji, Shikamaru, and all the others were looking over those haunting features, Ino and Kin were drawn to his eyes. They were cold, merciless, and yet they hid something. While Ino saw something familiar in them, Kin saw something she had never seen in a person's eyes before. Under all the ice and promises of death there seemed to be untold warmth, kindness, and a zest for life. He seemed to be hiding his true nature under his fury and cold indifference. They could see it, and it was beautiful. They could almost hear his warm blue eyes calling their names. Ino, 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 Ino. Damn it, Ino. Ino snapped out of her trance as she turned her head to Shikamaru, who was apparently the one calling her, and not the hot guy walking toward them. What, Shika? Ino yelled back as Shikamaru sighed and shook his head lightly. Shoji placed his hand on her shoulder, smiling at her with relief. I thought we lost ya there for a second. Shikamaru thought that guy had done something to you and the sound girl, what with the way you two couldn't take your eyes off of him. Shoji said as Ino smiled back at him. I'm fine, but that guy just seems familiar. Almost like someone else I know, and speaking of which, where is Naruto? Ino admitted as Shikamaru and Shoji gave her a look before exchanging one themselves. How was Naruto familiar to this guy? We don't know, but if we all make it out of here alive, then we'll worry about that idiot. I swear, you blondes are always getting me into these troublesome situations, Shikamaru said as Shoji gulped while the air started going cold around them. While Kin and Dosu were having a similar shushed conversation, everyone else felt the air grow colder and heavier as Naruto and Jaken drew closer and closer toward them all still. A bead of sweat rolled down the side of Neji's face. Shoji's teeth chattered lowly as he half-stepped in front of Ino with Shikamaru doing the same. Sasuke stood with a cocky smirk on his face as he thought of the newcomer as mere practice for him to display his superior power on. Sakura half hid behind Sasuke as she clutched his arm lightly. Dosu stood over behind both Kin and Zaku, hoping that while the swordsman was killing them he'd be able to make a clean getaway. Tenten, while shaking from head to toe, stood ready to die in a glorious and difficult battle with her kunai in her hand. Naruto surveyed all of them as he slowly gazed around the clearing with an impassive look and a mental shake of his head. Jaken stood at his side, kunai ready as well to defend his lord if wanted, though he knew it would not be needed. Finally, Naruto's eyes settled on Dosu, and the downed form of Kin as his dull gaze sharpened just a bit. Why are you and your teammates still here? Take that boy, and be gone. Naruto said as he turned back toward Sasuke and the other Konoha ninja. Hey, who do you think you are? We were here first, and they were our opponents. Sasuke shouted out in anger that this weakling would tell his prey to run and flee. How dare he? Bite your tongue, halfling. You are in the presence of Jaken. Naruto said calmly as Jaken stopped abruptly and turned to bow to his lord. Sorry, my lord. It's just that a fool such as he has no place speak to you like that. Jaken said as Naruto gestured for him to rise. No need, but still appreciated. Besides, there is no need to allow them to know anything just yet. Naruto said in a soft whisper as Jaken got back up with a nod. Hey, stop whispering over there. Sakura shouted as Naruto and Jaken turned back toward them. If Sasuke, though reeking of demonic chakra and power, could stand up to the girly-looking guy, then why couldn't she? Besides, Sasuke could take this guy down just like the sound team, right? Sakura, shut up. He will kill you. Ino harshly whispered at Sakura. The pink-haired girl had to have a death wish or suicidal dreams if she was messing with a guy whose chakra was faintly radiating off of him even though he probably wasn't aware of it. It sort of reminded her of Naruto, the way his chakra would bring out his eyes and make him glow every now and then. She really hoped Naruto was okay. He was her. Shut up, Ino pig. Sakura yelled as she pointed at the weird nobly dressed guy. Naruto, this guy has no reason to interfere with us. Also, he's not a proctor, participate, or even a sensei. He has no reason to be here, and he's annoying. Besides, it's 10 against 2. We can totally kick their asses. Oh, and what makes you say that? Naruto asked as he flexed his fingers, cracking his knuckles with the simple act. You may have plenty of chakra, but with the way it's leaking out of you, you must not have a lot of control. Trust me when I say, you probably can't use jutsu to save your life. I have an idiot teammate with roughly the same amount of power as you. Even though our sensei could teach him tons of jutsu, the moron has so little control over his chakra that if he was taught, he'd destroy the village by adding too much chakra and increasing the jutsu tenfold. Besides, it'd take years upon years for him to gain the proper chakra control to even do simple Chunin level techniques to the proper level. Sakura explained as most of the people around were in shock. Naruto had that much power. They knew his chakra was great, maybe even enormous, but to have so much chakra that even Jonin techniques are wasted was insane. He'd have to have Kage or Jinchuriki level chakra, and there was only one tailed beast that had ever attacked Konoha. And that was, on Naruto's birthday. Huh, how the hell did they not see it before? Shikamaru and Neji face-palmed themselves as Ino and Tenten gasped. Choji dropped his arms to his sides, and his constant bag of chips fell onto the ground forgotten within his shock. Sasuke scoffed because he had known since the academy. Didn't mean that the idiot wasn't a dope, it just meant that he was an uncontrolled, uneducated, untrained moron of a lovable jackass. Rock Lee's eyes widened while the two conscious members of the sound team were glad the boy they saw earlier hadn't been here with this samurai. They were also cursing the fact that the boy wasn't there to go toe-to-toe with this samurai guy while they got awake. Naruto raised a brow at Sakura's explanation of Kakashi-sensei's not having taught him like her and Sasuke and their reactions to discovering his Jinchuriki status. Jaken seemed to grin as he watched the imp ninja out the corner of his eye. Was it because his greatest had caused their reaction, or had the imp merely become sadistic during his time in limbo? I see. You mean young Naruto Uzumaki, do you? Ah, yes, I remember now. I believe that foolish boy was swallowed whole by a giant snake, though I do remember seeing him again later when he confronted and defeated 3 ninja. He seemed to have changed somewhat between the two incidents. What could have possibly caused such a drastic change in him? Naruto said in a quiet calm while the others stayed dead silent during his musings. You could have heard a twig snap right after his last word was uttered. Naruto had changed. And even more surprising was that the change was said to be drastic. Would he still be the same lovable goofball? Would he still be the kind-hearted guy they had all known? Ino wrapped her arms around herself subtly, though Naruto saw, as she thought over just how much Naruto could have changed. She wondered if he'd still. Dosu picked up Zaku and beckoned Kin to follow him as he moved toward the tree line. He suddenly had remembered that this guy had told them to leave, and was praising Kami for his unyielding mercy and grace. As he made it to the first tree he looked behind him, only to see Kin standing in the shadow of the swordsman while everyone else's eyes were impossibly wide. Wait, when the hell did the guy move? Dosu, who was trained to pick up any sound with a half-a-mile radius, hadn't heard this guy move 15 meters, in the span of 3 seconds, holy shit. Kin, run! Dosu cried out as he turned to run himself with Zaku on his shoulder, but was knocked back by a powerful hand. He and Zaku went down and skidded all the way back to Kin as the swordsman was nowhere to be. I thought I gave you a specific set of instructions, fool. A calm, yet icy voice said as Dosu jumped up, only to see that the swordsman was where he was. How the hell? What are you looking at, boy? The voice, so close behind him. Dosu turned around as fast as possible. There was the mysterious noble, with a calm hand on Kin's shoulder and a raised brow directed at him. Crap, he was so gonna die today. Nothing, your lordship, Dosu said as he bowed before the man, trying to appease the noble with his complete and utter submission. Just like a lamb about to be slaughtered. I'll tell you this but once more, be gone. I'll not dirty my hands with your disguising blood. Naruto said with a sneer directed at the bandaged genin. Wait, and shut up you. He's not going anywhere. Sasuke yelled as his curse mark spread even further on his body and his chakra became visible again. Sakura let go of Sasuke and jumped back as her hands steamed with the burns of the Uchiha's dark chakra. She looked down at her hands, and saw that only a small part of them were badly burned while her bare palms received lesser burns. Dosu looked at Sasuke with fear as he remembered the Uchiha's presence. This was not turning out good. Lord Orochimaru didn't inform us that he gave the Uchiha his curse seal. Plus, now with this powerful noble here we'll die either way. This definitely calls for a tactical retreat. Dosu thought. The Uchiha was obviously going to kill him if the noble didn't. Wait, there was still one card to play in this high-stakes poker of life. He could only hope that it'd be enough. Look, you win. We can't beat you, Sasuke Uchiha. Let me gather my teammates and we won't try attacking you again. You can even have our scroll. Dosu said, trying to convince Sasuke to let his team and him get away without further injuries. The noble raised his brow once more as he glanced from him, Sasuke, and the ninja that was his servant. Lord Orochimaru would want to know about all of these happenings, but they couldn't if the boy or the noble killed them. Drop your scroll, get your comrades, and leave my sight. Sasuke huffed out as he jerked his thumb at the catatonic Zaku and then at the forest behind himself. Scrolls, you say? And what are these scrolls and their purpose? Naruto asked aloud as Dosu froze on spot. The bandaged boy had hoped that Naruto would not interfere with him and his team since they were about to leave, but apparently not. The scrolls are for this exam, my lord. The teams are to collect a heaven and earth scroll each and bring them to the central tower in order to pass this part of the examination. Each team starts with one, and then must track down and defeat teams with the opposite scroll within the 5-day limit. Jaken answered as Naruto looked up into the sky in thought, a habit he formed as Sesshomaru. He remembered now, but then. Jaken, where is your team's scroll? Naruto asked as he glanced at the imp demon ninja. Right here, my lord. I've also been collecting the scrolls from the dead bodies of the foolish teams that stood in your way. I also have that former hindrance in this bag as well, my lord. Jaken said as he patted his pouch. It was a good thing that he had a storage seal on the inside of it since they had more than 10 scrolls and Naruto's headband in it from after they had healed Anko. Thank you for being so thoughtful and resourceful, Jaken. It's nice to see that you're just as good, if not better, than our last times traveling together. Oh no, thank you, my lord. You should not waste such kind words on me. Jaken said as he cried animated tears of joy. Hey, don't ignore us. Sasuke snapped as he glared heavily at the noble man, and that pathetic, sniveling ninja named Jaken. How could such a pitiful fool call himself a ninja? Serving and cowering at the feet of this guy. It was disgraceful and ruined the name of ninja everywhere. Oh, I had forgotten your presences for a moment. You, Dosu, I believe your name was. Get off the ground and leave with that broken boy. The girl shall stay with me, and if our paths shall ever cross again, I'll strike you dead before your pitiful existence knows that it's been ended. Do you understand? Naruto said as Dosu jumped up, eyes wide, and hauled Zaku away from the crazed samurai before they both died. He tossed his heaven scroll over his shoulder just before taking to the trees and never looking back. Kin was tough, she could handle enslavement, far better than he would, and he knew that. Well, maybe he'd come back later, after he was sure he'd escape alive. Kin tried to follow, hoping that Dosu and his fear was enough to distract the man. It was for naught, because as soon as she hatched that thought, a finely manicured hand was on her shoulder. She inwardly sighed to herself as she thought over how much her life sucked. Naruto quietly picked up the heaven scroll, half examining it before he tossed it to Jaken, who placed it in his pouch. Sasuke narrowed his eyes, but stopped as a smirk made its way onto his face. This guy was going down, hard. Sasuke dashed at Naruto in the blink of an eye as Naruto lazily followed his movements. Jaken was following the Uchiha boy's movements as well, but with a shake of his head as he thought over the many ways his lord could kill the boy. The poor fool. The others had only seen Sasuke disappear right before their eyes just like before, but before they could comprehend it a blue and white blur shot past them and crashed into the giant tree Sakura had hidden away in earlier that morning. They all turned in surprise to see Sasuke's shocked expression and going mouth as if someone had knocked the wind out of him, which they did. They turned back to the ninja servant, who must have done the knocking, only to get even more of a shock. The lord, who had not moved an inch since he took up the spot behind Kin, had his left arm raised in a backhanding fashion with only a bit of blood on it, which they could for some reason tell wasn't his. The other clue to him having backhanded Sasuke into the tree, which the Uchiha was imprinted deeply into, was the irritated twitch of his brow as he gazed down at his hand. Filthy blood, Naruto sneered in great evident disdain as Jaken ripped off a piece of cloth from his arm and gave it to his lord with a bow. Here my lord, do not stain your being with such filth. Jaken said as Naruto nodded and took the offered cloth with graduate, wiping away the blood from the back of his hand. Naruto turned his eyes back to Sasuke, glaring at the unconscious boy with mild irritation. The small feeling of safety the others had was quickly gone when the apparently very powerful, noble lord turned his icy blue eyes onto them, making them feel like the weight of the world had crashed on each of their shoulders. Naruto watched them struggle with gravity as he flexed his hand, debating if some of them were worth breathing rather than dead. He had thought that with any god luck, he would only have blocked Sasuke's right hook and then counter with a blow of his own. He didn't, however, think that he would subconsciously move faster than Sasuke could and backhand him into a tree. He was stronger than he had thought possible. If he was so strong, then he would snap a person like a twig. If he didn't get his abilities under control, he would snap any of his lovers like a twig. Congrats, my lord, on dealing with that flea so easily, Jaken said as Naruto glanced at him, but then at the hand he had on Kin's shoulder in thought. Do not speak so highly of such a simple task, Jaken. I didn't use my full might, and the blow I dealt the Uchiha boy was far too weak to be praiseworthy. Naruto said lightly as he watched Sasuke fall out of his imprint and hit the ground with a thud. Naruto was about to speak, but a smoke bomb was thrown into the clearing as Naruto and Jaken's eyes widened before they both calmed. It seemed that the boy named Dosu had returned, but what he doing back? Naruto felt, because the smoke screen effectively blinded his nose and eyes, as Kin was jerked from his light hold and snatched away. While he did feel incredible anger at it, he calmed himself as he entertained thoughts of killing both sound boys later before he ravished the girl, who would then become his faithful servant. Neji, who was using his Byakugan, saw as the Dosu guy snatched the sound girl from the noble's hold and sneaked away like a bandit in the night. However, he saw something that chilled his spine. The noble was smirking at Dosu's retreating form as the boy got away. The guy was so gonna die now. My lord, allow me to go after the ones that have done this, Jaken offered through coughs and wheezes. No, Jaken, there will be no need for that. Our paths will cross again soon, and then I shall crush them myself. For they will both live and make it to the tower, or they will simply die at the mercy of those in the forest. Naruto said calmly as the smoke died away, but mentally added the fact that Kin would live due to him having covered her with his aura the first time he stood behind her. The others looked freighted by the mere thought of the noble before them beheading someone with one of the two swords resting at his side. Naruto turned his gaze to them as chills ran down his spine, their minds reeling as they thought over their possible untimely deaths. Beside them, Sakura gave a gasp of breath, and when they turned to see what was wrong, she was falling forward in the arms of the noble that they had just seen in front of them. Shikamaru flicked off a kunai at him, but it seemed to only phase through him. At that same second the mirage disappeared, as did Sakura. They looked about the clearing and saw the noble pick up Sasuke's unconscious body. Kai, Shikamaru said as Naruto turned to raise a brow at him. What are you doing? Naruto asked as he threw Sasuke over his shoulder to rest there while Shikamaru sighed to himself. So, those movements of yours are speed alone. That makes it way less troublesome, Shikamaru said as Naruto nearly let a grin on his face. He adjusted Sasuke on his shoulder at high speed, but heard gasps as the others watched him. They had seen him move, and the afterimages moving behind him like stilled movie clips that disappeared in quick successions. Shikamaru smirked as his thoughts were proved right. The guy moved fast, but he wasn't that fast. The noble was far faster than him, but from what he had heard of the Lee guy's true speed, this noble was probably just a bit faster. They really needed to get away if this guy could still move so fast, even with him carrying two people. Naruto mentally smirked as he watched a frown form on Shikamaru's face. He had found that with his strength that he could carry just about anything with ease. His two unconscious teammates were as light as feathers in his hands. Hell, he could snap someone's neck, like a twig. Naruto jumped onto a high branch, far above the clearing as he turned to look down at the others. He saw Shuriken and kunai coming at him, but before he could use his whip of light, Shuriken and kunai intercepted them from Jaken as he glared at the genin. How dare you whelps attack my lord with his back turned? Such cowardly actions are an affront to his honor and yours as well. Well then, my lord will show you. Jaken, come, we're leaving. Our business here is done, Naruto said as Jaken flinched at the undertone anger in his voice. Naruto jumped Far and fast though Jaken knew his lord had flown, away from the eyes of everyone in the clearing. Though Jaken was still fuming in anger. His lord should have dealt with these pathetic humans. Jaken looked about at the group and saw them getting ready for battle, and he was all alone. They were getting ready to fight him. Oh crap. Wait up, Lord Sesshomaru. Jaken yelled as he ran to the edge of the clearing and took to the trees after his lord. Before he got too far, he noticed his mistake at having called to his lord by name and slapped both hands over his mouth. He sighed as he tried to stay positive. They were but filthy and stupid humans. Surely they wouldn't have noticed or even really heard him, right? Jaken was so very wrong, because a true ninja paid attention to everything around them. That was why both teams 9 and 10 were frozen in place at the name of Jaken's lord and master. The nobleman that had backhanded both Sasuke and Dosu, the one who made them feel as if a blade was at their throats just by looking at them, the very one whose aura felt cold and demonic, was named Sesshomaru. They knew now that they never ever wanted to cross paths with this man ever again on unfriendly terms. After all, would you want to mess with a man whose very name meant killing perfection? Far, far away from the Chunin exams. From Konoha as well, there was a clan of beings that muscled about slowly and sluggishly. They walked in front of a giant scroll that was on display for all to see, when suddenly the blank scroll, that had been blank for many generations, started to write a name on its first line. The inhabitants of this place looked up in shock and awe as they saw the name written in. They all turned to see the elder walk up to the scroll and read out the name for all to hear. Naruto Sesshomaru Uzumaki. The elder said with a madman's cackle. The inhabitants shouted with glee and jumped for joy at the name. Finally, they had a commander. Finally they had a lord and master. The dog demon tribe had a general once more. Ugh, what a drag. That fight was complete a waste of time. Shikamaru groaned as he sat next to Choji, who opened a bag of chips and began to inhale them. Their Team 10 and Neji's Team 9 had all stayed in the field, trying to think of the quickest way to get to an official and tell them about Sasuke and Sakura's kidnapping. That was until Neji pointed out the fact that this Lord Sesshomaru character was heading toward the tower, instead of anywhere else. They all consisted to the thought of this Lord Sesshomaru going there and being dealt with by older, more powerful ninja. Don't be like that, Shikamaru. We won, sorta, Choji offered positively between bites. Yeah, but that guy, it's too troublesome to think about. Shikamaru replied as he leaned back to look at the clouds. Neji still stood off to the side as he watched Tenten wake up their teammate, Rock Lee. So, what do we do now? I mean, there are still plenty of teams out there who could easily beat us, separately I mean. Ino pointed out as she looked at everyone else in the clearing. Rock Lee jumped up, mistaking her words for a challenge, as he normally did. Yes, that's an excellent idea. We can all make it through with the combined might of our youth. Lee shouted out as fires burned bright in his eyes while he gave his nice guy pose, right before Tenten clocked him with a fist to the back of his head and pulled him to sit down and be quiet. Technically our teams are still enemies for the remainder of this part of the exam, so teaming up wouldn't be wise. Neji warned Ino as he stood off to the side, but still willing to listen. Ah, come on Neji, it makes sense considering that all the teams are heading for the tower anyway. Besides, I'm sure our two teams have 2 scrolls by now, right? Tenten replied, trying to sway her pupil-less teammate as she looked at Team 10. Troublesome, but, yeah, we have both our scrolls. Shikamaru breathed out as he tried to focus on the clouds in the sky. What about Sasuke and Sakura? Did they have their scrolls? Choji asked, looking towards the direction Sakura and Sasuke were taking in. Well, maybe, I mean Naruto, Shikamaru began, only to be cut off by Ino, who decided to ask the question that no one else seemed to catch. Hey, yeah, come to think of it, where is Naruto? I didn't see him at all, and that Lord Sesshomaru, everyone shivered at the name, said that he was fine and had K killed. Ino pointed out as she looked around briefly before rounding on her smart, but lazy as hell teammate with a questioning gaze along with everyone else, though Neji tried to hide his own curiosity. Jaken, Naruto said as he sat Sakura and Sasuke down. They were far enough away so that his simple, yet dangerous plan could begin. He had only come up with it a minute after leaving the clearing by the time Jaken had caught up to him. Yes, my lord, Jaken asked as he bowed to Naruto. I want you to find a team, kill its leader, and go with them to the tower. Make them submit to my will if you have to, but don't make them mindless. Take on the form of their dead leader and use 2 scrolls to get to the next phase. I will be going back to the field with these 2 fools, and returning to my former appearance and aura. Naruto said as his body was covered in purple flames. His form shrank as him and his clothes morphed into his former Naruto Uzumaki. My lord, that was Jaken started, but shut up at the glare thrown at him. I happen to have liked my form appearance somewhat. Naruto growled out. Yes of course, my lord. I was just about to say how dashing and formidable you look. Jaken said jovially as Naruto turned his back to him and shouldered his 2 teammates. Get going Jaken, and when I return to my true form, then so may you. Naruto said as he flew off, leaving Jaken. Jaken was about to go in search for a team, until one ran right under the branch he had been standing on. Oh, the spirits smile upon me today. I won't have to work too hard now. Jaken said as he pounced on the unsuspecting team. Before Shikamaru could even give a theory or answer, rustling of the bushes on the opposite side of the clearing was heard, putting all 6 of the Konoha genin on edge. Everyone scrambled to prepare a defense, as they held kunai at the ready to fight whatever was about to emerge from the forest, be it ninja or animal. The moment you see whatever comes out, hit it with everything you got. Shikamaru said in unusual seriousness directed as they all nodded. They didn't have long to wait as Naruto's familiar orange form emerged from the tree line with an even walk and a scowl on his face, walking in before both brooding Sasuke and a raving Sakura. All the genin breathed a huge sigh of relief as they lowered their guards, thanking Kami that not only were they allies, but that Naruto had taken care of a possible bad situation by recovering his teammates. So, you guys are okay. That's good, Shikamaru said as he sat back down on his log with Choji. Yeah, I found them a few minutes ago propped against a tree while a guy was washing in the stream. I hurried up and got them before he came back. Naruto said with a thumbs up and cheesy smile, right before Sakura pounded his head in. It didn't hurt him one bit. Naruto still threw her a fierce glare and growl as he remembered she did the action on a regular basis. That was not going to continue. Naruto, you idiot. Where were you earlier? Where have you been? Sasuke and I had to battle another team without you, and nearly lost because you weren't here to help. Plus that nobleman must have kidnapped us. Sakura screeched as she moved a few feet in front of Naruto who, after getting close to her, continued right past her without a passing glance. Of course this didn't sit well with the girl who still considered her teammate a pushover and a punching bag. Did you hear me, moron? Don't ignore me. Sakura yelled as she aimed a punch to the back of Naruto's head, only to find him choking her neck in a vice grip. Everyone else in the clearing had to blink to make sure they weren't seeing things. 1 minute Sakura was about to clobber Naruto, the next thing they knew, he was holding her completely off the ground as she struggled to get free, even though he was shorter than her. It was the most uncanny, and yet amusing, thing they had all witnessed today aside from Sasuke using a foreign chakra to decimate the sound team, a nobleman batting Sasuke away like an insect, and some ninja named Jaken following said nobleman. Let's get a couple of things straight right now, Sakura Haruno. My name is Naruto, not idiot, dobi, moron, or dead last for that matter. I won't tolerate you trying to take shots at me anymore either. If you do try, then I can promise you Haruno you will lose a hand and perhaps a life as well. Now, am I clear? Naruto said in a completely emotionless, yet chilling, tone that had all the other genin shivering at the truth of his words. Even Sasuke mentally shivered at his teammate's voice, though what shocked most of them, and made Ino smile somewhat, was the fact that Naruto didn't have a joking smile on his face while shouting, "Sakura-chan." As for Sakura, she could only nod as much as the hand around her neck would let as she stared at her blonde teammate with a newly found sense of fear and awe. Naruto simply set Sakura on her feet only for her legs to give out, causing her fall to the ground on her knees in shock. Now then, let's head for the tower. We've wasted enough time as it is. Come, Naruto said briskly as he began walking past his fellow genin in the direction of the tower at the same pace he entered the clearing. He sent a look at Ino, smirking a little as her cheeks tinted a little under his strong gaze. Hang on, Dobi. Why should we listen to you? In case you forgot already, we don't have 2 scrolls. We need to. Sasuke challenged with his usual demeanor before Naruto pulled out the 2 needed scrolls, shocking everyone at the fact that he actually had 2 scrolls in his possession. I wouldn't be wasting my breath and time needlessly by saying head to the tower if I didn't have the necessary number of scrolls to pass. Now come, let's go. Naruto replied as he put the scrolls back and began walking again. Shikamaru and Neji narrowed their eyes at Naruto. He seemed so different now. That was until they remembered what the samurai nobleman said. I see, you mean young Naruto Uzumaki, do you? Ah, yes, I remember now. I believe that foolish boy was swallowed whole by a giant snake, though I do remember seeing him again later when he confronted and defeated 3 ninja. He seemed to have changed somewhat between the 2 incidents. What could have possibly caused such a drastic change in him? Could Naruto really have changed that much in such a short time? It seemed so. He was almost like, wait a second, how did you of all people get the scrolls from 2 other teams without getting into a fight and getting injured? I demand that you answer me, idiot. Sasuke shouted at Naruto's back as he kept walking. Hey, Naruto. You answer Sasuke right now, he asked you a question. Sakura screamed from her spot on the ground. Naruto stopped a moment later to glance icily over his shoulder. Had she forgotten what transpired all those 17 seconds ago? Was her fangirl attitude surging to the front with that much power simply in an effort to impress her crush? Or is it more than just a crush? It may have something to do with her mind. I'll need to see, because I know that she's much smarter than this when it doesn't concern Sasuke. Naruto thought as he gazed at Sakura over his shoulder. I have already warned you once, Haruno. However, I find it strange how quickly you have forgotten. As for you, Uchiha, you have no right to demand anything from or of me. Besides, it doesn't matter how I got the scrolls. I stand before you, and those 2 teams I have gotten them from do not. It's as simple as that. Now, come, let's go, because if you have enough energy to question and argue with your mouths, then you have more than enough to move your legs towards the tower. And believe me when I say that I will leave you in this forest with no hope of passing these exams this year. The choice is yours, Naruto replied as he resumed walking, not even sparing a backward glance to his 2 teammates or the others as they were still standing in the clearing, looking at his retreating form. Whoa, now that was harsh. Who knew Naruto could be so cold? It's unreal, Choji said while still eating away at the chips. Something tells me that he's going to be incredibly troublesome from now on. Shikamaru muttered while he and the others watched as the 2 members of Team 7 took off after Naruto. Ino thought was watching Naruto's graceful walk with a saddened eye as she thought, oh Naruto. Wordlessly, Sasuke began following behind his teammate, who by that time, had exited the clearing completely. Sasuke, Naruto, Sakura cried out as she scrambled to her feet and followed after Sasuke like a lost puppy. That didn't take too long. I hope Lord Sesshomaru won't be angry that I summoned this after so long. Jaken said, wiping blood from his kunai as he gazed at the staff lying next to him. It was the staff of 2 heads that he had used so long in their past lives. On half of the top of the staff, sat the head of an old man, and on the other side sat the head of a once beautiful woman. Although, it seemed the beautiful woman is more of an old woman with silky black hair. Jakin got off the rock he was sitting on with a sigh as he picked up the staff. He gazed at the staff and sighed again. The staff was taller than him even still, even though he had a taller body. I guess I'm just fated to remain short forever. This body is 16 years old, and yet it has the height of a 13-year-old. Yet Lord Sesshomaru is a mere 13, and his body stands as tall as men twice his age. Jakin complained as he jumped into the trees, traversing them as he made his way toward the tower. I really hope Lord Sesshomaru gives me height, this stature is just unbearable. Where is he, Ginza? A deep male voice asked as the person next to the owner of said voice was growing more and more irritated. I don't know, Koga. If I did, I would have been at his side in a heartbeat. Ginza replied in annoyance as the older man sighed, plodding down on the couch with yet another sigh. We came all this way, and we tracked his scent. But, we can't interfere with the Chunin exams and go out there and search for him. Man, what a drag. Koga said lazily as Ginza's eyebrow twitched. I know what you mean, but do you have to be so nonchalant about it? I mean, we did just find out that our clan has a real lord after about who knows how long. Besides, that means that you may have too. Yeah, I know. We all knew, but, I guess we all thought it'd never happen. Still, it's our clan's laws, and we must follow them, even in that matter, Koga answered as Ginza gave him a searching look. Ginza was about to say something, but then the last person they expected came around the corner. Well, make that people, and about 3 of them. Koga, Ginza, what are you two doing back from the ancestral home? Sum said, her surprise and that of her 2 children, evident of their faces. Koga gave his wife a lazy yet sad look while Ginza looked toward the ground, not gazing back at his surprised and happy fiancé. Sum rushed up to Koga and attempted to kiss him, but he merely turned away allowing the kiss to fall on his cheek. Sum gave him a confused look and turned to Ginza, but saw that the same was happening with Hana as well. What's going on, Dad? What's wrong? Kiba asked, him and his team having just arrived as he looked up at his father, his hero. I think there's something you two need to know. Kiba, go find your team, your mother, sister, Ginza, and I have to have a personal talk about the future. Koga said as he ruffled his son's hair, glancing at the other 3 adults with a solemn look. Kiba gave a confused look, but shrugged it off as one of the clansmen close to his father having died. He didn't like it, but he also knew that it was something that could fit into why his dad was acting so strange. Kiba was only worried about how whatever news his father had would affect his family. Koga watched as first son and second born walked off behind a corner. It was times like this he didn't like. Kiba was starting to become a man, and had yet to learn of their clan's darkest secrets. He had yet to know of their most sacred and ancient laws. The boy didn't even know in what country the ancestral home was in. He could tell that Kiba wouldn't understand, but that was a given. How would those who knew of these things, and were supposed to be prepared for them understand that the lives they had been living up until the day were about to be shattered? Sum, Hana, what I am about to tell you must be adhered to, and will be followed as our clan's laws dictate. Do you understand me? Koga said, a tear coming from his eye as he gazed steelly into his wife and child's eyes. They nodded, if only to make him feel better. He sighed again, yet this time far more solemnly than ever before. They couldn't even hope to be prepared for what he was about to tell them. How dare they have touched me with their filthy hands? Naruto said, flicking the blood from his hands in a switch motion, cleaning the appendage like new with the small action. The others had finally caught up to him, breathing erratically and sweating profusely. Naruto had, surprisingly, stayed ahead of all of them over the hours in which they traveled. While everyone else had been moving through the trees, he had been walking at the same leisurely pace. They couldn't even fathom how his was doing it. That strolling he seemed to be doing somehow kept him ahead of all of them, regardless of how fast they were going, and Lee had began moving very fast after seeing so. Yet and still, Naruto had walked far ahead of them, and now apparently killed this Rain Village team before they even got there. Naruto, walking like an open challenge to any that wanted to try him, continued on his way toward the tower in peace. Neji, and the others, who hadn't been that far behind Rock Lee, merely watched him walk off from them again, as it seemed that Naruto had decided to simply get this part of the exam over with. Soon, rather than later, an annoyed Naruto was tapping his foot in front the tower gates as Sasuke and the others landed in front of him. It had taken them a little time to catch up to him, but his appearance of being annoyed showed that some parts of Naruto, the really impatient ones, would never change. When the group got inside the doors, they came face to face with a large board that held a riddle on it. While everyone else struggled to figure out what it could possibly mean, Naruto got annoyed at their lack of brain functions, and simply snatched the scrolls away from them all. He tossed the scrolls to the floor as thin smoke started to waft from them. Reveal 3 people. The first was a man wearing a green spandex suit with a Jonin vest over it. He had a soup bowl haircut similar to Rock Lee and looked eerily like an adult version of the boy. This man was known as Maida Guy, the resident taijutsu master of Konoha. The second man wore an actual Jonin uniform and vest. He had a beard that covered the entire length of his chin as he smoked a cigarette that hung loosely between his lips. This man was Asuma Sarutobi, son of the current Hokage Hiruzen Sarutobi. The final person, making Naruto smile for the first real time that day, wore the uniform of a Chunin. His hair was done in a high ponytail, and he bore a scar that ran along the bridge of his tanned nose. This was Iruka Umino, who smiled back at Naruto upon seeing his favorite student. Well, this is a surprise, you all made it, together. Asuma said, or rather questioned, as he exhaled a drag of smoke into the air. The question flew on the children's deaf ears, or Naruto's bored ones, as the shock on their faces conveyed the only questions they really had. What are you all doing here, Asuma-sensei? Ino asked with confusion on her face, voicing everyone's, even Naruto's, curiosity and confusion. Allow me, Maida Guy, to explain it to you youthful genin. You see, when you obtained 2 scrolls and made it to the tower where you could finally open them, your Jonin-sensei would appear to meet you, and get you prepared for the next step. Guy explained with a smile without surprisingly yelling. Asuma and Iruka gave the man a look that clearly read, "Are you sick?" But that doesn't explain why you're here, Iruka-sensei. Sakura pointed out, as Iruka blushed lightly and rubbed his nose. Well, when this portion of the exam started, I had volunteered to be the one to appear for Team 7. I wanted to see how you all did. Iruka replied as he looked over his students, though his eyes lingered on Naruto, who looked impeccably clean to say he had spent nearly 5 whole days in a place called the Forest of Death. Iruka let his suspicions slide though, knowing that it was really Naruto in front of him. Naruto was just a simple person, and far too simple-minded to be up to something. After about 5 more minutes of talk, the discussion of what the board behind the adults came up. They told the children what it meant and how it related to the exams before letting them go to rest up and recover before the end of the second exam the following day. The 3 Konoha teams went their separate ways as each left to find their assigned room for the rest of the day. Sakura and Sasuke walked in silence behind their blonde, and clearly not in the mood to talk, no-nonsense teammate. They still couldn't believe how he had somehow managed to change so much over such a short period of time, but resolved to question it when they were all in their room. When they reached the room, however, Naruto had walked right past it, as if it didn't even exist to him. Hey, idiot, where are you going? Our room is right here. Sasuke called out as Naruto kept walking, keeping his temper from slaying his egotistical teammate, as if he didn't hear the Uchiha at all. Sasuke was about to go off after Naruto, but the hand on his shoulder stopped him. To his great surprise, it was Sakura that had the common sense about Naruto rather than him or someone else that actually cared a deal about the blonde. Don't waste your time with him, Sasuke-kun. Let's just get inside so we can wash up and I can do something about my hair. Sakura said, at first in a very serious tone, but it slowly dissolved into her swooning with syrupy enthusiasm while she opened the door for her crush. Sasuke sighed, not just for casual Naruto's dismissal of him, but Sakura's constant attempts to gain his heart or something equally stupid. They went inside to bath and such while Naruto never looked back. That, however, didn't mean he wasn't listening to every word. Something was seriously wrong with that girl's mental health, and he was gonna to find out what. Ino sighed as she closed the door to the room her two male teammates were sleeping within. She just couldn't sleep, both because it was like high noon, and because thoughts were weighing too heavily on her mind. What had happened to her Naruto? Where had all his carefree charm and goofy antics gone? While she was a bit glad he wasn't as childish as before, it also seemed that he became far colder than she would have liked. The way he was acting was almost like that noble. Ino, why aren't you resting? Naruto's calm and cool, two words she never thought she'd use to describe him, voice floated into her ears and melted her legs, also with more power than his kind and carefree one. She watched him walk up to her, and wrap his arms around her waist. She tried to push him off, but only did it half-heartedly as he started kissing her neck in a pleasant and heated way. It was like each kiss and tongue lash was heated on a stove. Stop, Naru, someone might see us, Ino said, in between her moans and his running his hands across her back. He stepped back and held her at arm's length as he gave her a cool smirk. On him it made his sneaky smirk, and cocky smirk seemed so childish, but this cool smirk of confidence gave him the look of a man about to take over the world. Cammy, did she want him now? I don't care anymore, Ino. The only reason I agreed to hide us being together was because of those fools and idiots that would have hurt you during our younger years. But now I am complete, and will slaughter anyone that dares to touch you or myself. Naruto said, the cool power rolling off him being enough to make her shiver. What was he now? A drug of power, cool, and sexy. Hell yes. Naruto, what's happened to you? I like some of the changes, but you seem so different, and yet the same. Please, tell me, Naru. Ino said as Naruto gave her a searching look, but sighed in defeat as she was giving him that cute, I don't understand, look he loved so much on her. I have changed, Ino. Not completely, but enough that I have new goals in life, and a new outlook on things. I've become wiser, stronger, and more intelligent than I would have ever been without this change in myself. Naruto said as Ino slowly nodded. I can see and hear it, Naruto, just from the way you're talking and dancing around my question. I thought we could trust each other with anything, Ino said, looking more and more hurt with each word she said. I thought you loved me. I thought that you stopped holding important things from me. I thought you were finally letting me in, but I guess not. Ino finished in tears as Naruto held her, reflecting on how far they had come. Flashback. 6 years ago. Naruto ran from, well, it should be obvious. He ran from the bullies, or kids with big metal things to beat him with. He ran past a group of adults, seeing their approving looks, and crying as their eyes scorned his very existence. He ran until his little legs couldn't anymore, the group still following after him though at a distance. Naruto looked about as he hid behind a building in an alley. He ducked behind a trash can and hugged at his knees as he let the tears fall freely, his thin little face soaked in his own tears and runny nose snot. Help! Anybody, please, Naruto cried as he gripped at his legs tighter, hearing the bullies getting close. Why couldn't he play in the park like the other kids? Why did they have to run when he came around? Shika, Choji, and Kiba stayed, so why didn't the others? Why did they have to come back after Shika and the others left only to beat him? Why pipes and stuff? Why couldn't he be normal like the other kids? He has to be around here somewhere. I know that. Look over there. Hey, kid. Come here. A voice said as Naruto looked up in surprise, having rested his head and prepared for another beating. There, in the doorway of a back door, stood a man with platinum blonde hair and blue-green eyes. The man was gesturing him over, and even though Naruto remembered a bad situation that happened the same way, his hope in humanity won out as he rushed to the door. There he is. He went into Mr. Yamanaka's store. He's really gonna get it now. Ha. Ha. Are you okay, kid? The man asked as he smiled down at Naruto, who leaned against the door with ragged breaths, still hearing the jeering voices of his bullies. Why yes sir. Naruto wheezed out as the man smiled and offered him a hand up. I'm Inoichi Yamanaka, but you can call me Inoichi. What's your name, kid? Inoichi said, but stressed, kid, like he already knew. Naruto, having brain cells stunted by both beatings in school, smiled largely at the helpful man. I'm Naruto Uzumaki, Mr. Yamanaka. Thanks a lot for helping me. Naruto said as Inoichi simply chuckled, though his ninja-trained eyes caught the already healing cuts and bruises on the boy. To think that the fox worked so quickly. Ha. Ha. Mr. Yamanaka is my father, young Naruto. Please, I insist you call me Inoichi. Inoichi said as Naruto's smile grew even more. Okay. Well, thanks again. I should probably get out of your way. What's your hurry? You should probably hide out here for a while until those bullies go away, don't you think? Inoichi said as Naruto shook his head. The old man told me never to stay with a strange ever again, or else I'll get mom molested and raged again. Naruto said as if he was telling a secret. Inoichi, who though it was kind of cute the way Naruto had looked around and whispered with a hand to his mouth, froze at two of the childishly mixed up words. Molested. Raped. Oh, just wait until Kakashi and the others heard about this. Naruto, I will never ever do anything like that to you. It's just that, Inoichi trailed off, trying to find an excuse to once again take care of the boy like before that bastard, whose face and name were never seen, spoken of again, sealed off the kid's memories without coming off as creepy. Just then the answer presented itself in the form of a small girl clutching a teddy bear. His little princess. It's just that I happen to have a little girl that needs someone to play with while she's here all alone. You see, my darling little Ino needs a playmate while my wife and I run our flower shop out front. I was kinda hoping that you would be her friend and keep her company while my wife and I work. Inoichi said, lying with the smooth expertise of a seasoned ninja from Konoha. Naruto, being a completely oblivious child, took a good fortune when it graced him, even in the form of a lie he didn't know about at the time. He bowed to Inoichi for his kindness as he walked up to Ino. At first the girl had beaten him with her teddy bear, but after a while she came around to the idea of having a playmate around, mostly because her father was doing the talking. Naruto promised that if he ever ran from bullies again that he'd run to their house shop. Later Ino and he became older, and Ino was allowed out into the streets and parks to play with other children. In fact, Ino came home one day while she was 8 and found a bloodied Naruto on her doorstep. She quickly ran to him and dropped down at his side as he gazed up at her weakly. Naru, what happened to you? Ino asked in hysterics, never having seen such a badly beaten person in her life. Nothing. I'm okay. Where are your parents? Naruto said, sitting up against the front door as Ino tried to pick him up. Daddy has a mission today and tomorrow, and Mom went to a floral contest in Tea Country for the week. They left me home, alone. I went to a friend's house for the day. What happened to you, Naru? I told you, I'm fine. It's just a few scratches, nothing to worry about. I'm still your big, strong Naru, right? Naruto said jokingly, trying to make light of the situation as he flexed his small muscles, but flinched as a cut was reopened and fresh blood came out. You're really hurt, Naruto. Come inside, and I'll find the first aid kit Mom always uses for you. I just wish you'd tell me what happened, Ino said as Naruto smiled somberly at her retreating form going into the kitchen as he sat on her couch. Maybe one day, Ino, maybe one day. Naruto, this is the third time this has happened. Tell me what's going on. Ino said as she bandaged Naruto's cuts on his left arm. Alright, fine. I get beat up a lot, okay. Naruto said as Ino looked at him. Naruto, that's not good. You should fight back. You're supposed to be my big strong Naru. Ino said as Naruto cast his gaze down. I can't, the old man said not to. Well, promise me that you'll tell me everything from now on. Ino said, holding out her pinky finger as Naruto chuckled. Sure, I promise. Naruto said, hooking pinkies with the girl as they both laughed as Naruto yelped in pain over the cut on his pinky finger. That same year the two were to start at the academy. The bullying had stopped the previous year, but Naruto had still been going over to the Yamanaka house every now and then. Ino grew to have more friends as she found the boy of her dreams. It was only by coincidence that Naruto showed up at her house on the same day of her newest discovery. Hey, Naru, guess what? Ino said, spinning into his arms as he chuckled at her antics. Let me guess, more flowers. Naruto joked as he gazed around the shop. Ino smacked his arm for that, but sighed again like she had been doing all day, as she moved to behind the counter. No, I've just discovered love at first sight. Ino said in a love-dazed tone as Naruto shook his head. I've been around for far too long for you to have love at first sight. Naruto joked as Ino rolled her eyes. Boys were so clueless. Not you, Sasuke Uchiha, Ino said as Naruto's chuckling face froze on spot, his eyes taking on a more somber look as he subconsciously decided the floor behind him was more interesting than the love-sick girl in front of him. Oh, was all Naruto could say as he could literally feel his heart breaking that second. He had meant the earlier comment as a joke, but it hurt when he was so viciously rejected. Plus his growing feelings for the girl helped his fall onto the lonely island of rejection. Population. Him. Naruto. Naruto. Are you listening to me? Ino said as she finally looked up from her musing about the perfect Sasuke, and there waiting to see that Naruto had turned from her and was staring at the floor with a pained expression. What was up with him all of a sudden? Sorry, Ino. I just remembered that I need to be somewhere, anywhere else. See you for the second day of academy tomorrow. Bye, Naruto said, running his mouth and feet at a mile a minute as he rushed from the store, bumping into Inoichi as he did. Was Naruto crying? Oh shit, what did his daughter do now? Naruto had been coming around less and less as the year wore on. Ino tried to see him on occasion, but he seemed to always have a reason to avoid her, and she had to admit that it was a bit better for her chances with Sasuke that way. Ino had met Sakura, and the two became fast friends, remembering Ino of her old days with Naruto. Now it seemed that Naruto only hung with the slackers, as the girls had dubbed the group of stupid boys, especially that lazy Nara, Shikamaru. That same week, Sakura came back saying that now she liked Sasuke too, and in a fit of anger Ino cut off her friendship with the girl. Ino had ran home that day, crying that she now had lost two of her best friends. She stopped at the door though because the sight before her gave pause her woe. It was Naruto talking to her dad, both drinking from mugs as they normally did every Friday, right before Naruto would find a reason to leave. Now I can't even think about her without, Naruto said as Ino gave another pause. Her. Who the hell was her? She should have been the only her in her Naruto's life. Who was this new bitch he was thinking about? Did she really just think all that? Hey Ino honey, how was your day? Inoichi greeted, overly loud as Naruto's gaze flung up from his mug to look at her with startled eyes. It seemed her father wanted to warn Naruto, huh? Hey, Ino, look at the time. Thanks for the drink Inoichi, but I need to leave. See ya, Naruto said, springing up and walking toward the door in a brisk fashion. Naruto, please don't go. I'm sorry, if I did something wrong, but please forgive me. Ino cried out as she rushed him and hugged his middle, knocking him down. I have to go, Ino, Naruto said with very little emotion as she hugged him tighter. Then at least tell me who this new girl is that you can't think about. Ino said quietly as Naruto's eyes widened in surprise. You heard that? Yeah, please tell me. Number. No. What do you mean no? I have a right to know. You can't just tell me no. Well, I just did. Tell me. No. Why are you so stupid? Why don't you just go back to your precious Sasuke, since I'm so stupid? Naruto yelled, though it came out as more of a loud whisper in a cold tone, one that she had never heard him use against her before. He gave her a freezing cold look as with one swift motion he pushed her off of him and raced out the door. She sat there, on the floor, with eyes wide as tears fell from them. But, you promised you'd tell, Ino said, sinking even lower into the floor as she cried, her father dropping down next to her. He patted his shoulder as he felt drawn between a thin line. Ino honey, I think we need to talk. Hey, Ino said lowly as she walked up to Naruto. Naruto looked back at her from his chair, having gotten the longest detention of his friends for skipping classes. Ino shifted nervously on spot as he gave her a cold look. Hey yourself. He bit back frigidly as she flinched. Naruto, please, I'm so sorry. My dad and I talked about some things, and... Well, that's just great. Why don't you go chat Sasuke up next? Naruto, please. I'm sorry. Really sorry about whatever I did. You don't even know what's wrong, so how can you be sorry? I'm trying to make things right. Well, you're not. Just go. Hang off of Sasuke like all the other girls, and leave me the hell alone. Why do you hate Sasuke so much? What has he ever done to you? I don't hate him, and he's done nothing to me. I'm just tired of hearing about him. I'm tired of you chasing after his duck-butted headed ass. What's wrong with you, Naruto? Ino finally shouted back at him as they were so close, in each other's face, him having risen from his seat. Fine. I'll tell you what's wrong with me. I'm tired of you talking about Sasuke. He wasn't the one that sat by your bedside when you had chicken pox. He wasn't the one that used to bring your lunch when you'd forget it. He wasn't the one that held you when cried from nightmares. He wasn't the one that picked flowers with you in the fields. He wasn't that one that was with you when you lost all your baby teeth. He wasn't the one that danced with you at your first ball. He wasn't the one that beat up all those bullies you used to have for being a flower girl. That was all me. Not him, me. He doesn't acknowledge you, I do. He doesn't care about you, I do. He doesn't, Naruto said, trailing off as Ino got back in his face, her eyes narrowed as he gazed heatedly at him. He doesn't what? Ino demeaned as Naruto seemed to lose himself in her eyes. Ino wasn't sure when it happened, but she did know that at some point after she said that, she found his lips on hers. He was kissing her, gently, and yet with passion she didn't even dream about. It was like he poured all his emotions into the small kiss. She could feel his frustration, anger, guilt, love, and his lust. Again, she wasn't sure about a lot of things. Like when she started kissing him back, or when her eyes closed and her arms moved around his neck on instinct. When the kiss was over, he rested his forehead against hers as she gazed into his eyes with the same emotion that shone in his own. Love. He may not love you, but I do, Naruto said, kissing her softly, lightly once more before she could get off cloud nine. He picked up his bag, and was about to walk away when she reached out and pulled back to her, kissing him more fiercely and with more hunger than he had with her. Hey, you try being a girl, kissing Naruto Uzumaki, and see if you don't hunger for more. The kiss ended as she rested her arms around his neck, playing with the unkempt hair at the back of his head while she gazed into his eyes. Only 10 years old, and yet she could honestly say that when she looked into his eyes she knew what real love was and never wanted to be without his. I'm glad to know, I'm so loved by my Naru. Ino said as she hugged him tightly, never wanting to let him go. I love you, Ino Yamanaka. I love you too, my Naruto Uzumaki. You're kinda strangling me, Ino. Oh, sorry. End of flashback. And that was how it all went, more or less. He had Ino played differently while school was in, her being annoyed by him like all the others, and him thinking she was snobby, yet when the bell rang and all the other kids were gone, or they were at the other's house, it was time to show their love for each other. Even during school they couldn't get by without secret admirer notes always him to her, brushing of hands as they walked past each other, and the occasional bumping into one another. Ino had been pissed the day he said, accidentally, that he had a small crush on Sakura. Ino threw all his furniture at him, and even kicked him out of his own bedroom. He had to sleep on the couch, in his own damn house. Oh well, those days were gone, for now he was a new person, a new Sesshomaru. Ino, I'll tell you. We've been through too much for me not to. Naruto said as he held her close to him. I've changed. While out in the forest of death I was swallowed whole by a giant snake, and was reincarnated as a powerful being. I can't tell you everything here, but if we can just share this moment right now, then I'll tell you everything later. Naruto said as Ino sighed and laid her head on his chest, faintly realizing that he had gotten taller since the start of the second exam. What moment? Ino asked as Naruto looked into her eyes. Remember what we talked about the night before we got different teams? Naruto asked as she nodded. We talked about making love, and then more about it when you came back from your mission in Wave Country. Ino said shyly as Naruto nodded unabashedly. Yes, Ino, I want to make love to you, here. Here, Ino said, a little loudly, as she pointed at the spot they were standing. Naruto only gave another cool smirk at her. No, but we can if you want to. I was actually saying in a room I can get us, but. Naruto Uzumaki. Okay. So, Ino, Naruto said, laying a single kiss on her neck as she gazed deeply into his eyes. So much love and hope in those cerulean pools of his, just like she remembered, just like she loved. Yeah, let's go, all the way. Ino said, her face growing red as Naruto smiled a true smile at her and picked her up, carrying her bridal style as he let his nose guide him to Jaken's room. I can't believe my lord kicked me out of the room simply to have his way with that human girl, Jaken sulked as the two genin from Waterfall followed behind him. You mean that Squirt was the chakra we sensed earlier in the forest before it disappeared? He was that oppressive force of demonic perfection. One of the genin asked as Jaken looked back at them. How dare you speak of our lord that way? When I tell him of this offense, you'll be lucky to live until morning. Jaken yelled as the genin grew pale. Jaken had told both of the young genin many terrible things that this lord could do, and he had even shared memories of the death of his two teammates with them. They had been scared straight, especially since Waterfall didn't have any super powerful ninja like the 5 great villages did to come and back them up. Hell, their village had been taken over by some asshole that drunk super water. Their village was lame, and they knew it. That was why they had agreed so quickly to become servants to this lord who had a servant like this Jaken guy. The man Jaken obviously had power of his own, but this lord had to be like a force of nature on his own for Jaken to be afraid of him. Especially since Jaken took out their team's leader with no real trouble at all, but complained about how combat was tiring in his new body. Whatever that meant. Plus, it wouldn't hurt if this guy helped them retake their village from the asshole named Suian. Hoki is very sorry for his stupidity, Master Jaken. Please don't tell the Lord. The female ninja said with a bow as she forced Hoki, the male waterfall genin, to bow as well. Jaken crossed his arms and closed his eyes to their pleas, but they pressed him until he sighed in defeat. Fine, I won't say a word, but remember this kindness old Master Jaken has shown you this day in the future. Jaken said as he turned from them and continued down the hallway. Thanks Fu, the boy Hoki said with a real smile as Fu nodded and smiled back. No problem, besides, you're my only friend, Fu said as Hoki ruffled her hair in a sibling-like way. Come along, children, we have to find another place to sleep. Jaken said ahead of them as they both smiled and rushed off after him. Maybe their asshole of a leader getting killed and replaced by the servant of an all-powerful lord wasn't such a bad thing as they had first thought, just maybe. You look great Anko. What happened? Killed a few animals along the way. Kurenai said as Anko shook her head. Kurenai was right thought, she did look good. She had, before coming to see her best friend, taken a nice long look at herself in a mirror. Her skin seemed healthier, the weight she had been trying to lose seemed to just burn away as she had moved to the tower. She looked like a woman straight from Kami the way her skin seemed to glow in the light. Every imperfection about her appearance was corrected, even that cute little beauty mark she had near her belly button. It was almost like she had become natural perfection. No, but damn do I look good. Nai-chan, I have the greatest thing to tell you. Anko said as she nearly skipped up to her friend, though the bounce in her step said enough. Oh, and what's that? Kurenai asked with a smirk as she was sure that her friend's happiness had to deal with the pain of others. I think I'm in love, Anko sighed out as hearts entered her eyes. Kurenai knew right then and there what to do. She fainted on spot and prayed to Kami that it was all a joke. Kurenai, get the hell up. I swear to Kami-sama that if you don't all. I'm up. Now what was this about love? Oh, Nai-chan, he's wonderful. He hurt that bastard Orochimaru, saved me, and healed me while snuggling me in his chakra. Anko said as Kurenai raised a brow at the information. Anko, haven't I told you not to take dango from? This wasn't Ebisu dango like last time. I'm serious. Anko said with a serious look at Kurenai, who sighed and sat down, patting the seat next to her as Anko sat. Now, why don't you start from the beginning? Kurenai said as Anko obliged, telling Kurenai everything she had told the Hokage about how Orochimaru had gotten into the exams, and her own confrontation with her snaky ex-mentor. And then right before Orochimaru leaves, a stream of chakra came from nowhere and slashed him across his back. Orochimaru had to have felt it because he actually cried out in pain from it and was hissing mad. Get it? Hissing mad? Oh, you're no fun. Anyways, I was kind of fading in and out, but this really fancy looking guy and his servant ninja came out from above and I saw that the same thing that had struck Orochimaru was coming from his hand like a whip. The servant told him how it was excellent work of his, whip of light, and then the noble looking guy tells the servant to heal me. That was when I finally blacked out, but when I woke up I sensed this really unusual chakra around me. It was like it was in perfect balance with everything around it, and yet held so many controllable demonic attributes. I knew it had to be the noble guy's because I sensed it from him before I blacked out and in that whip jutsu. Anko explained as Kurenai sat quietly for a moment before sighing. Anko, it could be that this guy was just using you, or maybe he was a good person and was only doing a good deed for you. I'm sure anyone would help you. But that's just it, Nai. Not anyone would help me, especially if they know who I am. I'm sure he knew who I was and he still helped me. The only ones that would have done the same would be you, Asuma, some of the other Jonin, and old man Hokage. Hell, I'll even add in that ass Ebisu to that mix because he likes me. That's about a total of 10 people, and half of them I don't think even care about me to save me a second time. This guy not only helped me, but hurt Orochimaru as well. That proves that he's more than just a good guy, he's a good and powerful guy. Anko said, licking her lips as she thought about the guy's face, the long blonde hair that seemed to never know split end or curl, and the eyes that seemed to know the depths of bloodlust and the heights of compassion. Kami, was she really falling for him? The guy was like her wet dreams come true, and she was sure as hell gonna get him if she could. Hell, let the guy have another girl, that would only be a bonus for her. Anko, listen to yourself. You sound like some schoolyard fangirl gushing over the next rookie of the year. Calm down and, if this guy is really who you like, not just some silly crush or sexual fantasy, then I'll help you get him. That is, if you ever see him again. Kurenai said as Anko hugged her tightly. Thanks, Nai-chan. You're the best friend a girl could have. I don't care what the others say, you're not a frigid bitch. Plus, I'm sure I'll see him again since I feel him here in the tower. I'm gonna go get ready for tomorrow, and then sleep the day away. Bye, Anko said excitedly as she twirled Kurenai in the air before rushing off, just as Kurenai finally caught on to what she had said. Anko, I'm not a frigid bitch. Yeah, you're just an ice-cold one. Shut up, Ibiki. No one cares what you think. My point proven, I rest my case. The following day all the genin teams that managed to get 2 scrolls lined up in a large arena floor in front of a pair of large stone hands in the ram hand sign. Anko stood at the front of the lines, looking them over with a critical eye as she was sure that the guy she had her heart set on was among them. She couldn't explain it since she couldn't sense his chakra, nor his demonic energy, but she could somehow sense his presence. And not knowing where he was while being so close was driving her crazy. Alright, maggots. To those of you that made it this far, congrats. You're the cream of this crappy ass crop. However, from here on is where things get really interesting. Before we start though, the Hokage is gonna give us a few words. The floor is all yours, Hokage-sama. Anko said, leaving the genin in a sense of suspense and energy as she stepped aside for her leader. Hiruzen Sarutobi, the third Hokage of Konoha, stepped forward and stood peaceably with a smile toward the genin. Many of them that looked upon him saw a kindly old man but, not Naruto. No, with his mind and senses sharpened like knives he felt the raw and intense power that had given the old man the title of, God of Shinobi. Naruto had to admit grudgingly against both his own pride and that of Sesshomaru's, that the old man had power almost to the level of full-grown Daiokai, but what Naruto respected most about old man Hokage, was the guy's character traits and wisdom. He found the old man's kindness and companion for the lives of others as a reassuring fact that he was loved even before Ino. He could see the old man's wisdom as the old guy gazed at all the Chunin hopefuls with an appraising, yet genuinely kind eye. Naruto's gaze drifted over to look at Ino as she seemed to glow in the faulty light of the stadium. He had, last night, revealed to her everything, including his own naked body and pleasure she didn't know existed, and more. He told her of his life as Sesshomaru, how he had become more intelligent and powerful, and even how he planned to take over the elemental nations. Hell, he even told her how he wanted to gain more lovers. Yeah, even though her slapping him wasn't painful, the yelling she did afterward did hurt his sensitive hearing. So yeah, that plan of bluntness didn't go over well. However, eventually, with enough pleasure from him, she had agreed to his want of more women, but only on the basis that he would still find ample amount of time to love her and fulfill her needs. It had also seemed that whenever he shared or enveloped someone who wasn't demon or half-breed in his demonic aura, it made them into a being of natural perfection. While in the moment of, climax, between the both of them, his aura he surrounded the both of them at his temporary loss of control. She had become lost all traces of imperfection and was left just as he saw her every day, perfect. Ino, in a fit of excitement, had initiated another round of great love-making, to which he was not complaining about. I told you, Shika. I was with a friend last night. Ino whispered harshly at her lazy friend. Ino, you don't have any friends here, and besides, you didn't come back this morning either. Shikamaru said as Naruto could only think that the boy was too smart and nosy for his own good. Damn lazy Nara had probably already figured out what she had been doing and with whom. With a brief pull of his pipe, Hiruzen Sarutobi went into explaining the true purpose of the Chunin exams. Naruto raised an eyebrow as it seemed the exams were merely a lighter alternative to all-out war between the many ninja villages which would cause more unneeded bloodshed. Naruto shook his head at the thought with a small sigh. All-out war was always a great solution to turn to if your power could crush your enemies, though he was blessed to be the one with overwhelming power instead of being the weaklings crushed within his wake. Plus the compassion within him kept him from actually turning to that solution now, and he blamed the Naruto side on him for that one more. Now to explain how these preliminaries are going to proceed. Sarutobi started, only to be cut off by another voice, one which was coughing as the male spoke. Forgive me Hokage-sama, but perhaps I believe I should be the one to explain this, seeing as I am the proctor for this portion of the exams. A sickly voice called out as a body landed behind the elderly Hokage. All the genin and Naruto who saw the man move like a feather dropping, turned to see a man dressed in the Jonin attire walk out. He wore his headband as a bandana, and had large bags under his eyes indicating a lack of sleep. He coughed a few times into his hand, again Naruto and several others indicated that he was very much sickly. But that somehow didn't stop Hayate Gecko from performing his duties as a shinobi, Naruto noted, even though he could see the man needed sleep and medicine instead. Hayate took his spot next to the Hokage, as the man stepped back to allow Hayate the pre-verbal stand. Alright then, I'm Hayate Gecko, and I'll be the proctor of third portion of the exams. You will take turns be battling in one-on-one preliminary matches until someone is defeated, unable to continue, or I stop the match. Any questions? Hayate explained all the while coughing through his words. Will we be allowed to kill our opponents? Gaara asked, his detached tone only compromised as he seemed to be fighting off the urge to shiver or moan under some form of pressure. Though it still caused many of those near him to silently pray that they didn't have to be the one to lose their lives at his hands. Naruto smirked at Gaara's words. Killing would be fun, just like the other thing he had planned for this part in the exams. Though he reserved death for the two sound ninja males that were glancing around as if nervously awaiting death. The girl, Kin, seemed to be calmer than the two males, but she too was watching for his noble appearance. Death of a combatant will only rarely occur if the circumstance can't be avoided, but outside of that, there will not be any outright killing of the other genin. Hayate replied, watching subtly as relief sank into many of the genin that were before him. You mean that we have to fight right now? Come on, man. A lot of us just got here and were worn out. An unknown genin from Konoha complained. Another attribute of the third portion of the Chunin exam is to test a shinobi's ability to adapt and work under pressure and fatigue. If you can do neither, then you don't deserve to become a Chunin in any village. Hayate replied while glancing at the genin. Funny, the boy didn't seem to change that much after hearing his reply. Are there any more questions? Good. Then let the preliminary tournament of the Chunin exams begin. Hayate said, declaring the start of the third exam.